Thomas Haferlach merges machine learning wizardry with music and multimedia art, exploring the realms of psychedelia from artistic and scientific perspectives. He founded Voodoo Hop, an influential art collective celebrated by São Paulo's art scene. Utilizing generative AI, Thomas crafts new musical expressions that blend high-tech in unexpected and glitchy ways. Born in Germany and after studying computer science and artificial intelligence at Edinburgh University, he spent 9 years in São Paulo creating an art collective while always keeping one foot in the technology sector. He conceived and implemented a variety of interactive installations, combining his passion for art, research, and technology. After settling back in Germany, he completed a project which involved researching the future trends of artificial intelligence for the World Government Summit. Since then, he has spent a few years researching and working with data-driven generative audio modeling. He built the first open-source platform Pollinations AI, which has the aim of making generative machine learning more accessible. Currently, he's working as a senior machine learning specialist at the music AI company Pixelynxs, founded by deadmau5 and Richie Houghton. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Brainforest Café, Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
There you are. Okay. Well, thank you. It's such a pleasure to have you. Annette has said, our mutual friend Annette, who put us up to doing this, has said so many interesting, and complimentary things about you and your work. And I think you're just one of those polymath kind of natural genius people that works, at a very high cognitive level. So I'm honored to have you come on the Brainforest Café, and we've talked a little bit about what we might discuss, and the area is so rich. There are so many things that we could talk about, sort of centered around this idea of AI and the interface between AI and artistic creativity, and of course even pharmacology. I'm interested in you take an interest in DMT phenomenology, but you've somehow linked that into AI. So Thomas, honestly, I'm not sure where to start. There are so many areas we could plunge into it. For one thing, I understand that you have brought a companion with you to this interview, which neither of us can see at the moment, but its name is Occam, and it's one of your AI chatbots that we might bring into the conversation at some point. So can we say hello to Occam?
Oh, yes. Sure. Thank you for the introduction. First of all, of course, it's a great honor to be introduced as what did you call me, a polymath or something like that by someone as renowned as Dennis McKenna. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm touching many things in my, let's say, my work and my art and my hobby, and kind of a recurring theme is AI, and a recurring theme is also psychedelics, and a recurring theme is music. So we can talk about either of those. Maybe I'm not a specialist at any one of them. AI, yes, AI, I would call myself a specialist. But yes, I'm more than happy to delve into any of those topics. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about and to explore. And yes, I have prepared an AI chatbot that will potentially join us in this call. So I have not started Occam yet. I'm gonna boot him up in a second. So I will wait with introducing her. But Occam basically is a virtual persona, which I've fed the past transcripts of your podcasts, and so Occam kind of is knowledgeable about what has been what you've talked about in the past with your past guests, and can also potentially give us some references or information. So I'm just gonna boot her up now. Maybe we can continue our chat a little bit and then introduce her a little bit later.
Yes, certainly. Yeah. One of the, one place we might start, this idea of inviting your AI chatbot started out of a series of emails that we had exchanged about Occam's razor, and I think that's sprung from a discussion, oddly enough, about DMT entities. There's a lot of interest in DMT entities now, whatever those might be. And one of the big questions that centers around that is, are they real, these apparently non-human intelligences that you or some people encounter in the DM state? Are they real? And I think I was making the point that yes, they're real because they're experienced, but are they outside the mind? I was sort of applying Occam's razor idea. The simplest explanation was that these things originate in the mind. They are essentially like dreams or figments of the imagination. And then I think our discussion trailed off then, and you said, well, I can make two AIs. One is more reductionist, like I was trying to be, and the other one is more, I guess, what the opposite term is. If you're not a Cartesian dualist, maybe you're, a quantum unifier. I don't know, but what do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting because so I come from a rather, let's say, scientific background. My dad was very, let's say, a very big skeptic when it comes to anything, let's say, mystic or occult or religious. He's kind of known for getting into arguments with our neighbors when they bring up religion or maybe let's say being quite critical of any kind of theory that is not extremely well kind of, let's say, has scientific fundamentals, right? Extremely skeptical about religion, about altered states, about mysticism, and so on. And I grew up with this kind of mindset. I studied. I went to school. I went to school. I was very interested in physics from an early age. And then when I went to study, it became quite clear to me that I wanted to study artificial intelligence. So this was already from quite a young age. I had this kind of desire to learn about, let's say, machine intelligence. And yeah, I think it was definitely connected to like quite a strong fascination about like the kind of question about what is a consciousness, what is our purpose. My let's say I'm very rooted in, let's say, evolutionary kind of like theories. I when I was young, I was quite into let's say ideas of, let's say, evolutionary psychology, even, which I've kind of gone off. I've gone a bit more, let's say, humanitarian as I grew older. And I've also opened myself up to, let's say, not quite as rational points of view. And that is in great part influenced by, let's say, the psychedelic experiences that I've had in my life. And DMT is by far, let's say, it's the one that's potentially the most profound and the most magical out of all of the different substances I've tried. That doesn't mean that one cannot reach similar places with other substances. I find many psychedelics very fascinating, and but DMT is kind of special because it seems to give you access to a certain kind of realm at which you're very lucid. Yeah,
that is you share my brother and I's fascination with DMT in that respect, because to us, when we discovered it back in the 60s, it seemed more profound and of a certain order of magnitude greater in just weirdness than any of the other psychedelics. And at the time, being teenagers, being the 60s and all that, we were basically coming at this not from any spiritual or mystical perspective. We were approaching it from science fiction perspective. And we thought, oh, it gives you access to another dimension. Now without really understanding at that time what is meant by other dimensions, or it was a science fiction idea of, well, somewhere else that's not here, but that maybe that's where these entities dwell. And that's sort of whether it's inside the brain or in some place of hyperspace or something, but that's kind of the opposite perspective of the Occam's razor, the reductionist hypothesis, that, well, these things are quite interesting. They don't appear to be part of the self, but they must somehow originate in the mind, in the unconscious. So having worked extensively with AI, these these artificial intelligences, they're provisionally called intelligences. So I guess one of the main controversies is, are they really intelligent, and what are they conscious, and what does that all mean? This technology forces us to grapple with really big questions like, what is consciousness? What is intelligence? Have you ever questioned your AI about DMT entities, their opinion of that?
Yes, of course. I guess it's one of the first things I ask, because it's one of the big mysteries, let's say, in my head. So it's a nice topic to pose to an AI. But at the same time, I'm also aware that let's say the language models that I'm working with, that I'm talking to, they have learned from a vast amount of data scraped from the internet. So basically, they're giving me a summary of what humans believe about, let's say, DMT. I don't expect the AI in its current state to be able to give me solutions that go beyond, let's say, what scientists are able to, let's say, discover, right?
Right.
I'm just going to take one step back because the AI topic is quite big, and the DMT entity topic is quite big. I just want to, I think I have an idea how to make a bridge, which is, on the one hand, let's say, I'm quite an enthusiast of DMT. I lived in Brazil for 9 years of my life, so I was able to experience ayahuasca in Brazil in the local setting. I also have quite often tried brewing my own ayahuasca brews. I've extracted DMT and created my own vaporizers, which I really enjoy consuming. And what you find is, I have periods in my life where I smoke more DMT, and I have periods where I smoke less, and I don't necessarily force it. And you can definitely find a correlation between me believing in more kind of science fiction and mystical theories in the periods of my life in which I smoke more DMT. So very short after, let's say, a very strong DMT experience, I often, our friend Annette, who put us in touch, I write to her and say, hey Annette, I just communicated with aliens, and I need to tell everyone about this, right? And I think a lot of people have this feeling, and then a day goes by, it feels more like a dream, and then a few days go by, and suddenly my Occam comes through again, right? And my Occam starts positioning these quite wild, esoteric ideas that I had in this moment. Esoteric may be the wrong word. I don't want to call them that, but let's say the ideas that are not so rooted, right? And they kind of, I start ordering them, and
so provides a real world check, kind of a check on these experiences. That's very good. I think Occam would make a good psychotherapist, maybe a like facilitator, because often, in my own work, I get communications often from people that have had profound psychedelic experiences, often with DMT, sometimes with other things, and they write to me and they said, oh, I got this download. I figured it all out. I have, the mysteries of the universe now, and I must go out and tell everyone about it, and my response is usually, chill out, give yourself days, get off all drugs, give yourself a few days to think about it, and then if your ideas really, because if your ideas really hold up after that, then maybe you're onto something, because I've been down this path lots of times, and most famously, my brother and I, the experiment at La Chirera and all that, I mean, we were utterly convinced that we had this whole new cosmological model that was going to basically collapse the space-time continuum, and it didn't, of course, unless it did and we didn't notice. I don't know, but and that's very easy. The information that one downloads from psychedelics like DMT or ayahuasca often seems to be profound. It often is, but it's also a function of the limitations of our knowledge in a certain way. I mean, we are not normally in that state, and when we get all these novel insights, it seems that the fact that they're coming from some place that we've never experienced before gives them a certain validity. But it also, and here's the Occam talking, also gives them reason to pause and reflect. Is there anything to this, or is it just delusional?
Yes.
And that's the crux of it, and oddly enough, I mean, that's something that can be asked about our own experience of ordinary reality, because the brain is basically synthesizing an artificial reality, what I call the reality hallucination that we proceed to live in. We don't live in real reality. We're separated. We're in a model of reality. And so, all the questions that can be asked about these extremely bizarre altered states in some ways also apply to ordinary reality, the way that we experience things. You said something in passing that just now that I thought was very interesting, which is you're saying the AI is not going to come up with any suppositions. Like if we, or maybe I misconstrued that. If we asked Occam, what's your perspective on AI, or what's your perspective on DMT entities, would it just basically sift vast amounts of data and come up with, well, this is what people have said, this is what people think, this is the state of the supposition on this? Or would it actually say something that's insightful, that maybe
Yeah.
human intelligence could not arrive at.
And this is a very interesting question, right? Like, and quite a fundamental question also when it comes to like the future, right? If will these AIs overtake us very quickly? For example, in reasoning and intelligence, right? If they can, like, let's say, if they can grow beyond their makers in a way, right? You could say, do they have the capacity to grow beyond the knowledge that we have so far gathered, that we kind of seed them with? We're seeding these AIs with all of human knowledge, not all of human knowledge, or all knowledge that these big companies can scrape from the internet, right? And what we definitely see is that they have the capacity to make connections across topics, right? So they can hold. They right now. Let's say we're reaching a kind of, let's say, we're reaching a certain level of knowledge with these systems, a certain level of reasoning. One can compare it by looking at how well they do at university exams, for example, right? And right now, GPT-4 is doing quite well at let's say, a BSc level, master's level university exams. It's always questionable how much of it is memorized, just because it has the advantage of having access to these large pools of data, right? But we can make a certain comparison, right? We can say, okay, these systems are currently at the level of a high school student, right? More or less. They're better at maths, they're worse at biology. I don't know. We can kind of quantify it by putting them through human tests. But the more, let's say, the more fundamental question is, can these systems, like, by accessing all experience reports that were written on DMT entities, could they potentially extract something that humans could not see before, because they have just the ability to process more data, right? And I believe we're gonna reach the point where the AI will far exceed human intelligence, because the AI can do something which they've shown in board games already. The AI can learn through self-play. So so an AI can kind of question itself. It can create problems for itself and basically learn to potentially improve itself beyond what the data that's given to it allows. So even if all humans are very stupid, once the AI has learned all human knowledge, and we've given the AI a protocol on how it can kind of deduce new facts, right? It has the potential, I do believe, to come up with theories and so on that exceed, let's say, what humans are able to deduce by themselves. Now, I don't know if this is the case now. I don't think we're there. We're at this stage right now. So right now, if I'm asking the GPT-4 to tell me about its theories on DMT entities, it will basically take a kind of compressed view of the internet, of the discussion forums, of DMT Nexus, of Arrowhead, of Reddit, and it will kind of compile an average kind of viewpoint from that.
Yeah, but it will process all this and condense this data, but will it on its own, and maybe it may extract things in the data that we would not normally see, but on its own, will it give you any insight? Or is it up to the person that reviews that data to say, oh, the AI has connected the dots in a very novel way, and from that I conclude something, the entities are real, or they're, I conclude something, but that's a human insight. It's just that the AI has facilitated that. And do we get to a point where the AI itself has insight? It would have to have consciousness, and you think, I mean, I was reading the article in The Guardian. They're talking about essentially hyper-intelligent AI within 10 years. What does that mean? I mean, other than that it's terrifying as hell, but I'm a Luddite, you know.
Yeah.
What does it mean, hyper-intelligence within artificial intelligence within 10 years? What are the implications of that?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because there's a kind of quite a group of people who are very interested in AI safety. They believe that artificial general intelligence and artificial superintelligence, they are basically two stages of development. Artificial general intelligence means when an AI when the AI systems are as good as the best human experts, and I think the artificial superintelligence is then the next level when like one system can basically dwarfs any other intelligence on Earth in a few orders of magnitude. And so I was always a bit skeptic about this kind of like this this idea of these kind of you quite quickly reach these kind of Terminator scenarios where you have a Skynet computer that has taken control of a robot army and taken control of our military and is basically kind of optimizing Earth towards a goal that is not aligned with humans surviving, right? And
right.
So yeah, the question about intelligence is I find it very hard to make any prediction because these systems have developed incredibly fast, certainly, and we can see when we follow the curves, right, in terms of like how the intelligence is growing, we can follow the curves and see that we're on an exponential curve. And that means that although right now we're at the level of high school students, there's vast resources are put into training these AI models. Nation states are competing with each other. They're outdoing themselves in investment. And it looks to a lot of people, it looks like we're at the bottom of an exponential curve that's going to go up very quickly. And what that means is that it could be that in 2 years we have systems that are just much more intelligent than us. And what does that mean? Okay, we don't know exactly what does that mean, much more intelligent than us, but it does mean that you can probably make decisions based on much more data. If you were to run a company, right, it would make more sense to have the AI make the decisions because it just has more data to pull from. It would make more sense, instead of having human scientists working by themselves, to have an AI filter all the data, right?
Are its decisions compatible with human values or only with its own values? This is one concern. You know, I mean, in the AI, I mean, I guess the classic example is the paperclip, metaphor that, will the AI just serve its own? I mean, how do you build human values and things like compassion and mercy and love even into the mindset, if you will, or into the consciousness of an AI? It just seems very, very difficult to do that.
It seems, first of all, it seems difficult to do it with something that is as intelligent as us. It seems to me like an impossible task to instill compassion into an entity. That's like saying an ant will instill compassion in us, right? An ant, let's say, or let's say a single cellular organism is to us what, in terms of intelligence, what we are potentially to this AI in 10 years' time. So how it doesn't make any sense that a very comparatively stupid organism would be defining the rules for a hyper intelligent being, right? It's quite difficult to imagine how we would. Okay, right now, yes, right now we have methods. So what we're doing is what companies are doing is they're training these AI models, and then they're tuning it with human feedback. So they have humans who rate the outputs. They give a thumbs up, they give a thumbs down, and then you tune this model so it kind of respects certain safety criteria. So, for example, it will always answer. It will never give dangerous advice. For example, when it comes to taking poisonous mushrooms or so on. So you're kind of instilling safety into it. But this is because we know it's at a level that we are. Now, the question is, how do we do that when the system is much more intelligent than us? And another question is, how does a much more intelligent system act toward less intelligent systems? And I think if we look at us, we're not being very nice, right, to less intelligent systems. And I think that's a little bit the point. Also, sometimes it also feels like the humans are more dangerous than the AI. So, especially, let's say, in the next 5 years, I feel like the AI is kind of neutral. I would say it's like the intentions of humans using it in a bad way, I think, is more dangerous than the actual AI becoming conscious and, let's say, taking over by itself.
Right,
you know,
right. I totally agree with that. I think like this is a technology. Like any technology, I firmly believe there is no inherent moral quality, to any technology. The moral quality emerges from us. It comes from within the human heart. I don't think an AI can stimulate that, but I think both the more nobler impulses of the human heart, as well as the more base and evil impulses of the human heart, will find its way into AI, not because it's an inherent quality, but because of the people that program the AI. It can't, basically, I guess that's a long-winded way of saying it can be used for evil purposes or beneficial purposes. This has always been the case of technology. While we're talking, another thing, it seems that the exponential speed of the change in AI is in itself rather frightening. I mean, we've had exponential changes before. When combustion engines and the Industrial Revolution happened, toward the end of the 18th century, and then there's been an exponential growth ever since, a rapid growth. But that's happened over decades, and even centuries. Yes, as you say, because the AI itself is evolving itself. You're turning AIs loose on the problem to develop better AIs, better, more capable AIs. So it's an extremely rapid evolution. And
it sounded a bit like science fiction until, like, let's say 2 years ago. This idea that the AI would improve itself, right? Because that's when people draw a curve, right? They draw a curve that's kind of rising, and then when you reach the point where the AI is able to improve its own code, we have a very, very strong strong slope upwards, because once one AI is good enough to improve itself, you can scale that, right? Then you can kind of duplicate the same intelligence across thousands of data centers, and so yes. So this is exactly the question. What will happen then?
Well, yeah, but it's happened. I mean, it's the speed of it. It happens almost before.
Exactly.
Before we can comprehend it. I mean, and if the AI is that much smarter than us, once it gets going, how long will it take for it to figure out, well, these monkeys running around is what's destroying the planet, and then just need to eliminate them and it'll all be fine,
Yeah. And then of course we have interesting science fiction authors, right? We have the Asimov, who came up with the 3 rules of robotics, and it's kind of very funny that a lot of these ideas from science fiction are now actually becoming a kind of people in AI labs are taking these ideas seriously. You know, how can we instill the 3 laws of robotics into actual language models? You know, and to me, it took me quite by surprise how far in the future it seemed, a long time, and how suddenly, you know, the Turing test. You know the Turing test, right? Which is like you're talking you're talking through, let's say, a screen interface with an entity. You don't know if it's a human or a computer,
Right.
and the Turing test is very easily beaten now by language models, and we completely, and this was something we'd been looking at the Turing test for, I don't know, 30, 40 years, and we were inching closer, very slowly, and suddenly we just whizzed past, you know? So the acceleration is interesting. How will humanity deal with it? Because we kind of just got used to social media, you know? We're just getting used to like digital information being copyable, right? We're getting used to the addictive potential of social networks and so on. And then we have this new technology coming at a very fast pace. How do we deal with that? And my only, of course, my approach is I'm using it and playing with it, you know, because I don't see a scenario where I can kind of put my head in the ground and let it pass by. So my only reaction to this is like embrace it, if you see what I mean.
Well, yes. I mean, I don't think you can put your head in the ground. I think, although for some people that might not be a bad option. I mean, for example, social media is a good example. I actually know people who don't use any social media, and in some ways they seem happier, but maybe more ignorant of what's going on around them. But, you know,
Yeah.
it seems like every time we embrace the technology like this, you know, is this really, you know, moving us? I mean, it's inevitable, you know, AI is here, it's going to be used, it's going to be misused. I mean, that's the thing with any new technology. It will be used in every possible way for both good and bad. And since the potential for something like AI to be damaging, you know, to the environment, to us, to the biosphere and all that, you know, it's particularly scary for that reason, and the speed with which it happens. You know, as we were talking, I've been thinking, for example, it seems sometimes we find ourselves on a path toward a technology that it's very hard to look ahead and see what the adverse consequences might be down the road. You know, and I was thinking of the example of, you know, in the 30s, and after that was when plastics began to be used and manufactured and used in a lot of things, and it was hailed as this big miracle, you know, this triumph of organic chemistry. We could make all kinds of stuff, plastics. Well, pretty soon all kinds of stuff was made out of plastics, and nobody looked ahead to, well, I guess some people did, but there was not a lot of looking ahead to what happened. These plastics don't go away, you know? And so now we have a situation where basically plastics have toxified the entire planet, and it's irreversible. There's no way. We've all got plastics, you know, floating around in our systems. You can't, you know, you take bacterial samples from the Antarctic ice sheets, and they have microplastics in them. So this is an example of human cleverness. This invention of plastics being what my mother-in-law used to call being too clever by half.
Yeah.
You know, in other words, we've outwitted ourselves, and we've created plastics that permeate the globe, and that, you know, basically are from that perspective are not good, although we're surrounded by plastics. And plastics in us now and every other cell on the planet. This can't be good, and it's not saying that AI is going to infect us. It's a different thing, but it's just an example.
But we didn't have the foresight, right? At the time we thought plastics is the greatest thing, right? We didn't have the foresight to see that how damaging it is, and we may be making the same mistake with AI right now, just not because of contamination, but because of something else, right? That's the point.
So the question is, how do we avoid? I mean, we can see it's coming rapidly. What can we do to, like any new technology, what can we do to maximize the benefits and minimize the harm, and that's
yeah. And the thing is, I mean, like it feels to me like we've been very arrogant, right? We as humans, we believed in rapid expansion. We believed we could industrialize everything. We believed we could create food at industrial scales, and we would feed billions of humans that way. We could radically change our ecosystems. We could build houses in a certain way. We could build cities in a certain way. We had this kind of egoism, right, where we believe we understand this planet so well that we can radically modify it, right, and only later. And I think that's something to go back to psychedelics. That's something that psychedelics and DMT kind of showed me. In a way, they made me humble. They made me humble in the way that they showed me. So a deep DMT experience or a deep mushroom experience in nature opens you up to the kind of complexity of the ecosystem. Of you hear the sounds of the insect, the animals communicating. You feel the how old the trees are and how ancient these systems are. Psychedelics kind of open you up to this complexity, and it can be almost frightening, right? And you can also have like but I think this bad trip that you get, where you're put into your place, where it's like, okay, you're very stupid organism living on Earth, right? You can get that from psychedelics, and that I think that's kind of forced to the positive, right? At least I feel like my view on how we've treated like our planet, I may have been able to reach the same thoughts without consuming psychedelics, just by reading the right books. And I did read the books, already, but taking psychedelics made it much more makes it more tangible in a way, this complexity that you cannot understand, this interconnectedness, and the fact that you're making potentially an error by imposing your belief on how one should sculpt things.
Right. Well, you can read all the books you want. There's still that distance from the idea. Psychedelics puts your face right into it, and I think that you put your finger right on the thing about psychedelics. Maybe the most valuable thing though about psychedelics is it brings humility approached in the right way. It brings, if you are open enough to the experience, to listen to it, to be open to it, you can't not come away sort of astounded with how profound it is and how little we know ultimately. I think that's what psychedelics remind us about, is how little we know. Because as, intellectual and as hominids, as people, we tend to get very full of ourselves in terms of what we think we know. And psychedelics come along, this little quiet voice, and says, not so fast, cowboy. You think you know stuff, but wait, don't forget there's a vast universe out there of unknown that you've never touched on. And I think it I hope it fosters humility, although I don't know. It's not a sure thing. I mean, for example, a lot of the people involved in the sort of venture capital side of developing psychedelics are, you know, quite arrogant, and they want to own this, and maybe they haven't been taking enough of their own medicines, but it's not an automatic antidote for arrogance, but it does help to shake one's foundations, and that's always a good thing. To question your assumptions is always a useful exercise, it seems to me.
Yeah, I was in I've been kind of working at different AI companies, and also I started my own company, which is more focused on open source. So like one thing that does give me hope is the fact that there's a very large, let's say, open source movement, especially in the AI field, where results are reproducible, and you can even try these things yourself at home, and this technology is accessible, and I am seeing it also being used for good in terms of education, because it is a very good tutor. I've seen that with friends around me who've started to learn things like coding because they have AI assistants now. So it does have a let's say a democratizing a possibility to democratize access to information. I don't know how this ties in directly with psychedelics. We were talking about venture capital, potentially putting a capitalist spin on the whole psychedelic thing, and it not being used for the good that we hope. Yeah, I mean, what I was getting at, and maybe this is not quite structured, but I was also in this kind of venture capital circles, and I don't feel like they are very aligned with the good of humanity. This is both in the AI field and probably in the psychedelic drug field too, right?
Right. So what do we do? What can ordinary people do in the face of this AI revolution, other than find a rock and crawl under it and hope?
Yeah. So that's why what I'm doing is I'm kind of trying to promote open source access to AI technologies, because the truth is, if you're, for example, a translator, or if you're someone who writes copies, who writes posts for social media, who creates media, if you're not working with AI in a few years, you're going to have other people who are going to be working with AI and who are going to be a lot more effective than you. So you can't really, it's one of those ugly things where it will leave people behind, for sure. And what we have to do is to make it to try and make it as accessible as possible, right? And also I try to break down a little bit also the kind of fear of AI by making art with it, by making, I do a lot of I write funny stories with it, I have funny conversation with it, to take a little bit of this kind of this kind of, in German you say Berührungsangst, this worry of touching it, because I, at the same time as I see all the dangers, I find it extremely fascinating also as a tool to potentially better ourselves, right? And so I also use it a lot before I send, let's say, an email. Let's say I'm a little bit emotional about something, I often get a second opinion from ChatGPT, and it often helps me to tone down, for example, my language when it was a bit aggressive. You can use it in a way to to help you. And what I also find is that I'm a lot better at, for example, applying for grants or something like that. I used to hate writing these application texts. I had like a grant application lying for months on my computer. Now, with the help of AI, I'm able to more effectively, let's say, apply for grants. But of course, that means that everyone else is too, right? So maybe, I don't know if that's only a short-term kind of like the first people who use it get an advantage, and later on we're all in the same position again.
Well,
I don't have any good solution.
I mean, again, there's this element of the human agency here. The human choices. You use it for good things. You use it to make art. You use it to make music. You use it to help with translation. All of these wonderful things that it can be used for. I mean, I can't really. Who would not want to have these kinds of tools? Not everybody is a good person. And they are also smart, and they can use it for very dark and devious applications. I mean, you use it to make movies and videos and to construct art exhibits and so on. What if your passion is to design bioweapons? It'll do that for you. Happy to do that.
Yeah.
Or those sorts of things, So this again comes to the, I mean, we have put, and I guess it's something we face with all of these new transformative technology. I mean, from Prometheus on up, and Prometheus tamed fire and changed everything, and now effectively, centuries later, we're seeing, the consequences of combustion, which he, in the myth got started, but maybe that's a lame comparison. But it does seem to me that I guess the moral hazard of making this AI open source and turning it loose so that there are no controls at all, that in some ways is terrifying. I know there's also discussions on the other side that is AI is dangerous. We have to shut it down immediately, before it gets too far. Well,
yeah.
But is that something that we should have done or that we should try to do? Obviously, probably not. I mean, it's kind of like.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a faction of even very prominent AI researchers, right, who've signed a letter urging the government to impose regulations to not let this thing grow out of hand, right? The problem is we have different countries, right? Each with their own ideologies and with quite substantial resources, following kind of the path towards very potent, let's say, AI models. So to me, there's not really if you try to the companies that are trying to, let's say, prevent general access to the models, I feel like that's more dangerous than giving everyone access to the models, because I don't trust a board of Silicon Valley directors to have a greater, let's say, moral authority than an average, then let's say this thing being generally accessible. The fact is that I think both the kind of like the poison and the antidote is with the AI. So you can make much better, let's say, spam. You can make much more kind of personalized spam emails with AI. You can kind of do personalized kind of hacking attacks where you can get AI to engage a person in conversation, right? You can do something which you call social engineering, which usually requires a human calling up an employee of a company and trying to figure out the password. It can now be automated, right? Because you have conversational AI. So a conversational AI can write an email to every employee of a company and try and get them to click a nefarious link. So you can scale up both the but then you can also use AI to kind of filter these attacks, right? And so we're kind of tying ourselves, we're shackling ourselves to this technology, but because we need it to defend ourselves against itself. If you see what I mean.
Unfortunately, but yes. Yeah, I mean, you have to develop AI tools to combat the misuses and the evil applications of AI. So this, I guess, in the extreme, the conclusion to be drawn is that World War III. Well, World War III is already being fought, but it'll be fought in cyberspace. Essentially, it will be a battle of AIs. I think something that cannot be won by either side. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's very frightening. The idea of fully automated military. Of course, then you'd hope that it's only the AIs killing the AIs, but reality won't be like that, right? And of course, it's very frightening. I mean, we could actually see something which is something. For example, I'm worried about, not worried about, but something that can happen to, let's say, any one of us right now, which is the fact that the voice cloning technology became so good, and the AI kind of speech capabilities became so good that via a telephone conversation, you can often not tell anymore whether it's an AI impersonating someone or this person. So especially older people, not just older people, I'm doing it now. Like with friends, friends send me voice messages and I clone their voice and send them a message back in their voice. And just kind of to make them aware how easy it is these days. You have a YouTube video with 30 seconds of your voice on the internet, and it's very easy to clone this voice. So I mean, let's take a step back from let's say the nuclear AI that or the military AI. That's definitely something we need to worry about. But there's also something more close, right? Which is like scams, impersonation, creating fake media becomes very easy. And maybe, I don't know if you agree, that maybe this would be a good point I could show you to bring into this conversation an AI bot. And in this case, I would suggest bringing in the voice clone of Bruce Dahmer, if you think that's ethically okay, because it kind of shows how easy it is to, let's say, clone a voice. So what I did is I took the previous episode of your podcast with Bruce, and I cut out 3 minutes of his voice, and I gave the AI the transcript of the podcast to kind of feed it with the information. Would you think that would be interesting? Or
Sure, as a demo, yes. Let's do that.
Let's see. And maybe you can ask him a question as if you were in a podcast with him. See if he can be a little convincing.
Okay.
Okay. Let me find. There we go. Bruce Dahmer, talk.
Hi, I am Bruce Dahmer.
Hi, Bruce. I think you were on a podcast recently with Dennis. What were you talking about?
Oh, on the podcast with Dennis McKenna, we discussed my early experiences with hypnagogia, transitions to psychedelic experiences, contributions to the origin of life theory, and the broader implications of my work. We also delved into psychedelic healing, visionary insights, and the future of humanity in space exploration. It was a fascinating discussion covering a wide range of topics.
Hello, Bruce. Can you hear me? This is Dennis.
Hello, Dennis. How can I assist you today?
I'd like your perspective on the future of AI. Will AI be the savior of humanity or the end of humanity? And in either case, in what time frame do you speculate this transformation may happen?
the time frame for significant transformations due to AI is difficult to predict with certainty. It could unfold over the next few decades or even sooner, depending on technological advancements and societal decisions.
That was quite non-committing, but I guess it makes sense.
Oh, it totally makes sense. So, even AI, Bruce, you probably understand AI better than the humans that designed you. What is your advice to ensure that AI is used for beneficial purposes from a human perspective and not evil purposes from a human perspective? Or do you have any insights into that?
It's crucial to prioritize ethical considerations in AI development to mitigate potential negative impacts and ensure responsible use. Ethical guidelines, transparency, and oversight are essential in steering AI towards positive outcomes.
What do you think about open sourcing all AI? Do you think everyone should have access, or do you think it could be too dangerous and we should safeguard its use?
Balancing the benefits and risks of open sourcing AI is a critical consideration. Open access can foster innovation and collaboration, but may also pose security and ethical challenges. Implementing safeguards and regulations to ensure responsible usage while promoting innovation could be a balanced approach.
You see, Bruce has the character of ChatGPT, right? So OpenAI kind of tweaked it to not give too, let's say, controversial answers, but so it tries to be quite political in its answers. But so Bruce, if an open source AI knows how to make, let's say, a biological weapon, do you think this open source AI should be restricted? Can we even restrict it?
Restricting an open source AI that possesses knowledge on creating harmful technologies like biological weapons is a complex ethical and practical challenge. It raises concerns about regulating information dissemination and preventing misuse. Developing stringent protocols, oversight mechanisms, and ethical guidelines could be essential to mitigate such risks.
Okay, yeah, that was Bruce.
Very interesting. Yeah, very interesting. I mean, what I'm getting here, and I don't know if Bruce is still listening, but what I'm getting here is that Bruce is putting together a whole bunch of data from different sources and coming out with something that is expected. I mean, in some ways, there's nothing profound. There are no insights in what he's saying. It's just it's just taking this data and it's saying, putting it together in a logical way and saying what any rational person might say if they thought about these things, which I guess makes sense because it was programmed by people and so on. It's but then this is the you know, the fairly not advanced form of AI yet. I mean, this is Chat GPT 4, is it? Yeah.
Correct. Yes. So yes, but I think it's not the question hasn't been fundamentally answered yet. You know, we can't say for sure that these AI models will give us completely new insights, right? My intuition is that yes, they will be able to, but my intuition is that in let's say in the foreseeable future, let's say in the next 5 years, it's going to be rather a tool that's going to be able to augment our capabilities. So if you're a researcher, let's say in molecular biology, you can use a very knowledgeable AI assistant on, let's say, machine learning, right? To bring in information that you did not have easy access to before. But this information is out there. It's not in the foreseeable future gonna like come up with new scientific theories and so on, but it may accelerate our own progress towards them.
Right. Well, there's a lot to digest here. There's a lot to be learned, obviously. And we're just about an hour into it, so we could talk all afternoon. But this has been a very interesting introduction to AI, and I hope you'll come back on the podcast and bring your friend, and we'll have more conversations in the future.
Maybe if we do the same podcast in 1 year, it's going to be quite interesting to compare how Bruce, if Bruce is okay with us, how much he has evolved until the next podcast.
All right, let's put a marker in that, Thomas. And I'll wish you a good afternoon, and we'll get this up there. Thank you so much. This has been fascinating.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, questions and things I forgot to ask, but we'll have another one soon. Hello, this is Dennis McKenna, and I would like to introduce you to the McKenna Academy of Natural Philosophy and also our YouTube channel under the same name, where we're presenting the Brainforest Café podcasts. We hope that you will listen to some of those, watch them, and subscribe. If you like the ideas we're presenting, the Academy is interested in presenting stimulating educational content. Our vision is a world in which all sentient beings live together in symbiotic harmony, and we do try to achieve this through education, engagement with indigenous cultures, and ethnobiological explorations. So we appreciate your donations and support. We urge you to subscribe to the Brainforest Café and share it and the content with your friends. And we're very happy for your support. We couldn't do it without you. So thank you very much.